Forget everything you think you know about Vikings. Seriously. Horned helmets? Total myth. Thanks, opera. One-dimensional brutes obsessed with pillaging? Way off. And Ragnar Lodbrok, the Viking poster boy himself? His story is so twisted, so embellished, so downright fascinating that the Hollywood version looks like a children's cartoon. We're talking epic saga-level intrigue, a potential composite of multiple real figures, and a story that's been used and abused by everyone from medieval chroniclers to modern-day TV producers. Think Vikings were only about raiding? What if their farms, their complex trade networks, their intricate social structures, and their rich mythology played an even bigger role in their success? Get ready to have your Viking preconceptions shattered. This isn't just history, it's a detective story, and we're about to unravel the mystery of Ragnar Lodbrok. The legend's shadow Ragnar Lodbrok. The name resonates with power, with adventure, with a primal energy that captures our imagination. He's become an archetype, a symbol of the Viking Age, a figure whose deeds, real or imagined, have echoed through history and continue to inspire and misinform us today. But the Ragnar we know, the Ragnar of popular culture, is largely a construct, a carefully crafted narrative built upon fragments of historical truth, interwoven with threads of myth and embroidered with centuries of storytelling. It's like a historical game of telephone where the message has been distorted and exaggerated with each retelling. We're left with a figure who is both compelling and elusive, a Viking phantom flickering between the realms of history and legend. And that's precisely what makes him so captivating. Why does this matter? Because the image of Ragnar and the way his story has been told has profoundly shaped our understanding of the Viking Age. It has reinforced stereotypes, obscured the complexities of Viking society, and often overshadowed the real historical contributions of these Scandinavian people. We need to look beyond the horned helmet caricature, dismantle the myths, and delve into the historical context, the social dynamics, and the cultural forces that shape the Viking world. We need to separate the Viking from the legend. Act 1. Origins: the farmer, the serpent, and the seeds of legend, before the longships. Our story, or at least the most common version, doesn't begin with the clash of oars against water or the cries of warriors on a battlefield. It begins in the quiet rhythm of rural Scandinavia, in the smell of damp earth, the bleating of sheep, the careful tending of crops. Ragnar, if the sagas are to be believed, and that's a big if, started as a farmer. Yes, that Ragnar, the larger-than-life hero, the scourge of England and France, the man whose name became synonymous with Viking ferocity, was, at least initially, a farmer. It's a detail that's often overlooked, but it's crucial for understanding the complexities of Viking society. Agriculture was the foundation of Viking life. It provided sustenance, it shaped their communities, and it played a vital role in their expansion. One particularly colorful story found in the saga of Ragnar Lodbrok, a 13th century Icelandic saga which, while entertaining, should be treated with a healthy dose of skepticism, tells of Ragnar slaying a giant serpent, a lindworm, that was terrorizing the local area. This act of bravery, this demonstration of cunning and strength, not necessarily raiding, is what first brought him recognition, what planted the seeds of his legend. The saga describes how Ragnar, ever the resourceful one, devised a clever strategy to defeat the beast. He coated himself in tar and pitch, then rolled in sand, creating a kind of makeshift armor that protected him from the serpent's venom. This wasn't just brute force, it was ingenuity, adaptability, a quality that would prove essential in his later exploits. The image of Ragnar, the farmer hero, reminds us that farming and fighting were not mutually exclusive in Viking society. They were intertwined aspects of life, with many Vikings likely participating in both. The sagas, while often fantastical, offer glimpses into this agrarian reality, painting a picture of a world where the plow and the sword were both tools necessary for survival, where the same hand that sowed seeds could also wield an axe. Act 2. The unexpected turn, from farmer to fearless leader, or a composite of leaders, navigating the murky waters of history. So how does a farmer become a legendary Viking leader, a figure whose name strikes fear into the hearts of kings? This is where the historical record becomes incredibly murky, where the lines between fact and fiction blur, and where the sagas often contradict each other, presenting us with a multitude of different, sometimes conflicting versions of the same events. The sagas, brimming with heroic deeds and fantastical elements, depict Ragnar leading daring raids across the English Channel, sacking cities like Paris, and amassing wealth, power, and a fearsome reputation. He's portrayed as a charismatic leader, a skilled strategist, and a warrior without equal. But these accounts are often exaggerated, embellished with fantastical details, and the historical evidence to support them is, well, let's just say it's sparse and open to interpretation. It's entirely possible, and indeed likely, that the figure of Ragnar Lodbrok, as we know him, is actually a composite of several historical figures, their individual exploits and achievements woven together over time to create this larger-than-life persona. Think of it like a historical Frankenstein's monster, assembled from different parts, each contributing to the overall legend. There may have been multiple Viking leaders who engaged in raids during this period, and their stories may have become intertwined and attributed to a single legendary figure, much like the way stories of various heroes in Greek mythology were attributed to Heracles. One particularly gruesome detail that appears in several accounts is Ragnar's supposed death. The legend says he was captured by the Northumbrian king Ella and thrown into a pit of snakes. Talk about a bad day at the office, but did it actually happen? Was it a symbolic act? A way to demonize the Viking raiders and portray them as barbaric in the eyes of Christian chroniclers? Or was it simply a good story, a dramatic ending to a legendary life? Nobody knows for sure. What we do know from more reliable historical sources, although even these can be problematic, as they were often written by those who were not necessarily sympathetic to the Vikings, is that the Viking raids of this period, the 8th and 9th centuries, were a complex phenomenon driven by a variety of factors: economic pressures, overpopulation in Scandinavia, the lure of wealth and land, and the fragmented political landscape of Europe. The fractured kingdoms of England and Francia, weakened by internal strife, presented tempting targets for Viking raiders seeking to expand their influence and control. These raids weren't just random acts of violence. They were often carefully planned and executed, demonstrating a sophisticated understanding of naval warfare, logistics, and even diplomacy. The Vikings were not simply mindless berserkers. They were also shrewd strategists, skilled navigators, and opportunistic entrepreneurs. Act 3, Lasting Impact, Ragnar in Pop Culture and Beyond, the Myth Made Flesh and Blood. Ragnar Lodbrok, whether a single historical figure or a composite of several, has had a profound and lasting impact on our perception of Vikings and the Viking Age. He's become a symbol of Viking courage, daring, and independence, inspiring everything from epic poems and sagas to modern video games, TV shows, and even heavy metal music. He's a cultural icon, a figure whose name evokes images of longships, axes, and the wild, untamed spirit of the North. Think about the popular character of Ragnar Lodbrok in the History Channel series Vikings. That's a direct, albeit fictionalized, descendant of the legend, embodying many of the characteristics attributed to the historical or legendary Ragnar: ambition, charisma, ruthlessness, and a thirst for adventure. But the real impact of Ragnar Lodbrok might be more subtle, more pervasive. The image of the fierce, independent Viking, personified by figures like Ragnar, has shaped our understanding of Scandinavian history and culture for centuries. It's a powerful narrative, even if it's not entirely accurate. It's a narrative that emphasizes the warrior ethos, the spirit of exploration and conquest, but often overshadows other important aspects of Viking society, such as their complex social structures, their intricate trade networks, their artistic achievements, their legal systems, and their rich and complex mythology. Interestingly, some modern historians argue that the traditional emphasis on Viking raiding and warfare has inadvertently obscured their significant contributions to trade, exploration, and even diplomacy. They were not just raiders, they were also skilled navigators, merchants, and artisans, establishing trade routes that stretched across Europe and beyond, connecting distant lands and cultures, exchanging goods, ideas, and even genes. The legacy of Ragnar Lodbrok, therefore, is complex and multifaceted. He represents not just the warrior, but also the farmer, the strategist, the myth, and the enduring power of storytelling. His story, whether entirely factual or largely fictional, speaks to our fascination with heroes, with adventure, with the distant past, and with the enduring human desire to leave a mark on the world. It taps into something primal within us, a yearning for excitement, for freedom, and for a life lived on the edge. But it's crucial to remember that the Ragnar we know is not necessarily the Ragnar who lived, or perhaps the Ragnars who lived. He's a character, a construct, a product of centuries of retelling and reimagining. The riddle of Ragnar. So, was Ragnar Lodbrok a real person? Probably. Was he exactly as the sagas portray him? A flawless hero, a fearless warrior, a larger-than-life figure whose exploits defy belief? Almost certainly not. He was likely a complex figure, a product of his time, his actions and his story embellished and reinterpreted over centuries, passed down through generations of storytellers, each adding their own creative flourishes, their own biases, and their own agendas. The Ragnar we know is a carefully constructed narrative, a blend of historical fact and legendary fiction, a tapestry woven from threads of truth and imagination. He is a symbol, a representation of an era, a figure onto which we project our own ideas about Vikings and the Viking Age. He's a mirror reflecting our own fascination with the past, our desire to understand the forces that have shaped our world. Imagine if we only knew about the American Wild West through Hollywood movies. We'd have a pretty skewed picture, wouldn't we? John Wayne and Clint Eastwood would be our primary historical sources. Ragnar Lodbrok is the Wild West of the Viking Age, a figure shrouded in myth and legend, a character whose story has become so intertwined with our understanding of Vikings that it's difficult to separate fact from fiction. Would his legend be as powerful, as captivating, if we knew the mundane details of his life, the everyday struggles of a farmer in 9th century Scandinavia, the political machinations and power struggles that likely shaped his actions? Maybe not. The mystery, the ambiguity, the larger-than-life persona, that's what makes him so compelling. It's what allows his story to resonate with us across the centuries, but it's also what makes it so important to question the narrative, to challenge the assumptions, and to delve deeper into the historical context. What do you think? Have I been too skeptical of the sagas? Too quick to dismiss the heroic tales? Or have I not been critical enough? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'm genuinely curious to hear your perspectives, your interpretations, and your own personal take on the riddle of Ragnar Lodbrok. Let's keep the conversation going, and together let's continue to explore the fascinating, complex, and often contradictory world of the Vikings. As Ragnar Lodbrok once said, "Power is dangerous. It corrupts the best and attracts the worst." If you found this exploration of his life insightful, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Join us at Retold History as we continue to uncover the stories of the past.